Hello and welcome to Noninkables. This is season 2, episode 6. Lots to talk about, I suppose. So the past week, I published a video of me opening Chinese Lord Kana cards, and I went into it thinking that my Chinese was pretty good. Turns out it is not. And so I'll put a link to that video in the description below, and you guys can all laugh at me struggling to read Chinese. My plan is to, with the cards I have, look up the words I don't know so that hopefully in the future when I post videos of this, I don't sound so dumb. I also have friends who I may have on the channel to read the Chinese with me who are much better at Chinese. This past week, we played at I played at 2 set champs. Brian played at 1. Gary played at 1. And Tyler is still busy being a dad, so with new babies. So he isn't playing in any until next weekend at NorCal TCG. This weekend was also the DLC in Australia and drama again, which I have kind of strong feelings about. So I will talk about that too. Okay, so on Saturday, I played at King Kong for set championships. I played a green steel. I played a deck similar to the one I played at Games of Berkeley, and I did pretty bad. So my record was 0-1-4. So I lost one round and tied the other 4. And I ended up placing 26th out of 32, which is bottom half, probably like bottom quarter. And I think it was a combination of some variance, but also my brain was just not working. And I think from playing green steel, it seems that green steel, at least this set, is very much a deck that you have to be like on top of your game for. I think it's a very strong deck, but it definitely requires a lot of thought at every single turn. There's like no autopilot, especially if you don't draw your Diablo shift. But even if you do, because people are running things like Fire the Cannons and Brawl, I think it's still very thought heavy. And I think it's a good deck Brian and I were talking about this. It's like a good deck to really hone your skills because it's a little bit unforgiving. So I think, like, for example, like red purple, I think is a deck that like a beginner can play, but like the very good people play it and it's like a different deck. You know what I mean? So like it's I guess it's kind of like Lorcana as a game where it's beginner friendly in that like you could play red purple and just like however much ink you have, that's what character you play. Like it has that kind of nice curve to play on. But there's like a wide amount of ability, I suppose. Like beginners can play it, but like really advanced people can play it and they're like playing a totally different game, it almost seems. Whereas I feel like Green Steel, this set, at least like that beginner part is missing. And so you have to be like at least kind of good for it to even work at all. Unless you're just really lucky and you always get the Diablo shift. But even then, I feel like there were some games I did get the Diablo shift and I didn't think enough ahead and it was not good. So yeah, that's what I've kind of realized about Green Steel. So for King Kong, first round, I played a red purple deck and I drew. They were playing red purple with teeth. We were playing best of 2, which is why there were so many draws. First game I won pretty easily. Second game I got to 15 and then red purple did red purple things and I lost. Second game I played another red purple. So first game was against Brandon, second game was against Adam. I played another red purple. And the first game I won, I was on the draw. Second game I lost, I was on the play. And like I feel like that day I was very I don't want to make excuses, but I was very tired. So I could feel like my brain not doing what it's supposed to do. And like several turns after I'd done some moves, I would be like, my brain would be like, oh, that was a misplay. You shouldn't have inked that. You should have done this. Let's see. Round 3, I played Amber Steel. First game, I was so close to winning. I got to 17 and they were only at 1 lore. And then they were able to get control and I couldn't get anything to survive. I couldn't draw like any warded characters. And so they ended up winning. It was like very, very close. That second game, I was on the draw and I ended up winning partly because my opponent bricked, but they drew 3 whole new worlds. They had 3 whole new worlds in their hand, amber steel, and they were stuck at 4 ink. So there was a lot of turns where they just passed and they couldn't play anything. And I think they had like a Robin Hood, and they weren't sure if they should ink the Robin Hood and just play the whole new world. And I think because of that, they passed a turn, hoping to like play the Robin Hood the next turn as a big Robin Hood, and then maybe sing it the turn after that. But then instead they drew into like another whole new world, which is also uninkable. And then they ended up just being like, okay, fine, I'll ink the Robin Hood, hard cast the whole new world, and then it just whole new worlded me into all sorts of answers. I think also at some point I had like a Diablo out, and so if they whole new worlded me, I would draw like 14 cards. But I ended up winning that game. Round 4, I played against Anthony, who was on Blue Steel, and I think it was that like Ward Blue Steel, like Kiwi Birds, where it's like Alice, and then she quests and gives people Ward, and then it has like Mythic Manor and stuff. First game I was on the draw, I lost. Second game I was on the play, and I won. And then the last round, I played against Brandon, who I played at Games of Berkeley. We played in round 2 at Games of Berkeley and also in the finals at Games of Berkeley. So ironic that we were both in this like middle of the pack, definitely not going to bubble in soup, the two former finalists. How far we fallen. He was playing the same deck, Amber Steel aggro with mines and bodyguards. And first game I was on the draw and I lost pretty bad. I only got to 2 lore. And then the second game I was on, I also lost actually. I got to like 10 lore. So it's kind of like a repeat of finals at Games of Berkeley. And then so after that, I was like, okay, I think I'm done with green steel. Also, I'm very tired of working so hard, thinking I want to play something simpler. So my original plan going into Sunday, we were going to play at Destine, was that I was going to play hyper aggro. I had found this. It wasn't really hyper aggro. It was like a yellow purple deck. It was a Mufasa deck, but it also ran just in time. So I think the idea was that you could play just in time on 3 and you could get out either the 5 cost characters were like Mufasa or Elsa or Isabel Madrigal. And I love Isabel Madrigal. I love that card. So I was like, oh, I was going to play that. And then, of course, DLC Australia happened and DKP won it with red blue. And then Brian was like, oh, why don't you just play this red blue deck? And I was like, oh, that looks kind of interesting. And I was like, okay, let me play that deck. And I think I played 1 game online and then took it to the competition, which I mean, it made the competition very fun and interesting because I feel like every single round I was learning how to play the deck. And I don't think I'll play that deck again. Like it was okay, but I went to turns 3 rounds out of the 5 rounds we did. So it was also very tiring, which was not what I was looking for. I was like, I should have just brought hyper aggro. Okay, so at Destine, it was best of 3, 4 Swiss, 5 rounds. First round, I played Edmund, who I feel like I always play him at Destine because last time we played Destine, I played him. And then I remember in set 4, I played him at King Kong. And I just remember that game being very, very stressful. I was playing red purple, he was playing blue steel, and we went to turns. Everybody was watching. I was panicking. I did my math wrong. And I should have just killed the Tamatoa because I could. And instead I like killed the Hiram and something else because I thought I had another turn, but I forgot about the other item he played. So I did my math wrong. And then I like did all this stuff. And then he was like, okay, so I just win. And I was like, what? And I was like, ah, dang, I did my math wrong. And then I think last time we played at Destine, he was playing red purple with like Finders Keepers, and I got demolished. I think I was playing items at the time. And then this time I was playing this red blue deck that I hadn't played before, and he was playing red purple. And the first game I was on the play and I lost. I ended up with 3 B preps in my hand and like 2 Mauis. And I was like, I need the blue cards to get me cards. And I would kept just drawing red cards. And then there was never like a good time to play B prep because he would just put everybody in the library. So if I B prepped him, he got all these cards. So I think that was kind of hard. And then the second game I was on the play and I won. And really what saved me? Blue cards, Hiram. I popsicled into a Hiram into a bunch of other answers. And then the third game, we went to turns. I'm trying to see because I like wrote it in different places. We went to turns and like after the end of turns, he was at 14 and I was at 6. So technically it was a tie, but I was like, dude, you would have won like no problem. We just needed more time. So I was like, you can just take the win. Because one, like, I already have 2 mats and like a playset of scars. I don't need more. And also I think Edmund had at that point, like, he hadn't gotten any scars yet. And like, I know in my heart of hearts that he's better. And that if we just had more time, he would have won. And like, you know, I was like, that's fine. You can take the win. And he did end up going on to win the whole thing. So I was like, hey, so happy for him. So that's round 1. And then of course afterwards he was like, oh, I think you should do this and this. Like, this is what this deck is supposed to do. And I was like, oh, thank you. This is so helpful. I'm learning every single round, basically. Round 2, I played a red-blue mirror. So we, of course, went to turns. I played against Tony. The first game, I was on the play, and I won that, I think, maybe not easily, but I got to, I'm looking at my map. I got to 20 lore, and he was at 12. And I ended up just, I think to win, I just ended up hard casting a Pirate's Life. And then game 2 went to turns. So we only played 2 games, we went to turns. Game 2 was, we went to turns and I ended up winning and he was at 6 lore. At some point he did cast a Pirate's Life right before turns. And I think part of it was just his inexperience also. So there was, like, he could have made it into, I guess, just 1 win and then like not win for the second game, because he could have challenged my Hiram with his Maui Shark and then gotten back a Pirate's Life. And then I would have needed like more, because I ended up winning by like, I had a Maui Shark out and I played 2 actions, but I would have needed like more to win. But instead he played a regular Maui Hero Wall and challenged my Hiram that way. And I think that's just an experience with the cards and the deck. Round 3, I played Chris, who was playing Blurple. We played 3 games and we went to turns. Round 1, I won. I think, yeah, it was pretty, I got to 20 and he was at 3 lore. So, and we were playing like pretty quickly because we both were like, I was like, I just want to not finish in turns. Didn't happen. Game 2, I was on the draw. First game I was on the play. Game 2 I was on the draw. And he won. I think I got too excited about ramping up to Shark that I did, and I was like ramping with Sail, so I didn't have anything on the board. And so he got to like 13 lore before I got any lore. And I think that was just too much. And so I couldn't pull him back. Round 3, I was on the play and it was neck and neck. So it was like, I was at 3, he was at 7, I was at 4, he was at 9, and then I went to 5, and then 6 lore, he was at 10. And then based on this, a lot of like Pirate's Life stuff was happening in the middle there. At one point it was like 15 to 16, and then I think 17, 18, and then he ended up Goat Bounce. I think I had to kill his 2 characters that were in the library or else he would win. And there was no way for me to get rid of the library first. And then that, because of one of them was a rabbit, so he drew like 3 cards, and that drew him into the Goat Bounce. But yeah, he ended up getting, he was also in the top 8. And then round 4, I played a Bai who was playing red blue, and he had just played Brian, and Brian had just beat him. And then I beat him, and I feel a little bit bad. So game was interesting. I was able to see all of my Hirams, and he didn't see any of his Hirams, which is weird because I run 3 Hirams and he runs 4 Hirams. So I won, and he only got to 6 lore. The second game, I think I was able to do what this deck is supposed to do. So I was on the draw, and I went turn 1, I think Popsicle, turn 2, Tipo, turn 3, McDuck Manor, turn 4, McDuck Manor, turn 5, McDuck Manor, turn 6. Wait, no, turn 1, Popsicle, turn 2, Tipo, turn 3, McDuck Manor, turn 4, McDuck Manor, turn 5, McDuck Manor. And then turn 6, I prepped his Shark and his Tipo. So yeah, it was bad. And I think he was having like I think after playing Brian, he was already kind of having a meltdown about playing red blue. And then after playing me, he was really having a meltdown. I was just like, I'm so sorry, but I think this is what this deck is supposed to do. And then round 5, I matched into Brian and he kicked my butt. So the first round, I was on the draw and he got to 19 more. I was at 1 and I was able to hold him at 19 more until I got to 9 and I Pirate's Life him, so he went back down to 17. And then he won 18, 19. Second game, he was on the play and it was also super close. So like when he got to 19 lore, I was at 10. I was able to Pirate's Life and Control. So I got to 16, he was 17, and then I got to 18 and he was 19. And by that time I was out of B preps. And I think he played it like Smee, something with Ward, like Amuses and something else. And so he won. And I was like, oh, we both didn't make it in. So his record, I think there was one person, the eighth person had the same record as him, but based on tiebreakers was higher. And I think even if I had won that game, because we would have had the same record if I had, or like I would have had the same record if I had won that game, I would not have bubbled in because that person was ahead of me. I mean, if my first game with Edmund was a tie, maybe, but I was also very tired and I was like, I'm fine going home. This is totally okay. So that is this past weekend. And next weekend, I'm definitely playing something different. I feel like I'm just in the part of the set where I no longer want to play. I'm not, I think because I have two mats, I'm like, okay, I don't really care about playing the best deck and winning. I want to play like a fun deck. I even considered playing brooms at one point, but then I was like, no, I'll definitely lose if I played brooms. But maybe, so next weekend we are going to 88 Card House, which we have not been to, but I do know that they do, there's set champs in like a hotel, so there's more room. And the other one we're going to is NorCal TCG, which I also haven't been to, even though it's technically one of our locals. I've just always been working whenever they do their set champs, but not this time. Luckily, some people picked up my shifts, and so I can go. But I feel like NorCal TCG is usually pretty competitive. So part of me is like, maybe I should bring a competitive deck, but also I don't know if I can play green steel that well. I feel like I kind of feel like at the beginning of set champs, I like had it and I understood it and I was like, I got this. I know how to play this deck. It's working for me. And now I'm just like, I don't know how to play this deck anymore. I'm so confused. What do I do? So I feel like I should play something else. I think also a little bit is like the psychological part of like, I know this deck is good because I won with it and Tyler wins with it. So when it fails, I feel like it's on me. It's not the deck. And I don't want to feel bad about my Arcana abilities because I lose. So I don't know what to play. My plan is this week when I have time to try out some different decks. I've been trying out that Mufasa Amber Amethyst deck and I don't think it's good. Partly because like it tops out at 5, which is not how you're supposed to use Mufasa. You're supposed to use Mufasa to get like pretty big stuff, like very expensive things. And so I think it's not great in that aspect. So, but I do think I want to play like a more aggro deck. I just don't know which one, so I have to figure that out. Okay, and then now we will talk about the DLC at Australia. So this is the DLC at Australia. I think it was Oceania. Happened over the weekend. I did consider going because I was like, oh, I have that weekend free. And then I looked at the flight prices and like the flight time, and I was like, oh, no, I would not fly like a whole day just to play Lorcana and then come back and not see any of Australia. And that would be all the time I had. But it seems I didn't watch. Okay, I didn't watch I didn't watch very much of it, I have to say, because I was kind of Lorcana'd out from playing. But when we were playing on Sunday, everybody was talking about the horrible judge ruling, rule striking, blah, blah, blah. And so, of course, I watched that part and I have thoughts. So, we're going to watch what happened together and then I will give you my thoughts. Okay, so basically, this is the clip of what happened. It is in 2 times speed. So you quest with his Chernobog, gets the lore, gets a card, right? He then quests with his broom. And then he's like deciding what to ink. Do I ink the crab? Do I ink the Elsa, right? Because there's a Maui shark on board, so you don't want to leave anything open for that Maui shark to challenge into, since it can get back actions. He ends up, I think, inking the crab, and then he plays a goat. And he gets the lore for the goat, and then he banishes the broom. And then the other guy goes, you can't do that. You already got the lore for the goat. That part has passed. And he calls a judge. So a lot of people had talked about that I've seen basically online talking about this is like, oh, those effects all go into the bag and the active player can choose what order to do them in, right? However, I think it's actually a different rule. So I looked at comprehensive rules. There is a rule in like one of the earlier sections just about like playing cards, and it is rule 4.3.4 4.8, and it says, if an effect would trigger as a result of any of the steps for playing a card, that effect waits to resolve until the card and its effect are fully played and resolved. So if you think about this, right, it says that when you play a card, basically, you have to fully resolve that card that you just played, and then you resolve the effects that would trigger as a result. So when you play a goat, you would play the goat, get the lore, then you fully played that card, and then you trigger the effects that would resolve after playing that, right? So based on this rule, he should be able to play the goat, get the lore, and then banish the broom to get a card. They called the judge. The judge ruled not that way. The judge ruled that he couldn't banish the broom. So then the broom was left open to be challenged by the shark. And so the shark was able to get back, I think, like develop your brain or something to get another card. The shark was able to get back the develop your brain to get another card, which led to like popsicles and harems and basically turn the game around. Right. And so I think a lot of people, there's like a whole Reddit thread kind of slamming the red blue player and how he's a rule shark, blah, blah, blah. Which, like, I think when you're in a competition that's kind of like high stakes like this, people tend to be more rule sharky, I would suppose, because I think when everyone is very good at playing, there is much less, like, you can't just count on people to misplay and that's how you win, which I feel like when you play people who are not as good, that is kind of sometimes how you win. But when like the levels are so close, then it goes more down to like luck of what you draw, but also skill. But like, so then people think of other ways to try to gain like an advantage for themselves. And one of those would be to like be a stickler for the rules and be a rule shark. So I don't find a huge, I guess I don't find a huge issue with the rule shark. I mean, I think it's kind of douchey and like this is a kid's game and like of course he was gonna do that. It's not like someone so I feel like this happens when you play online when like somebody draws cards with like Hiram or something or friends and then they go undo, can I undo the turn? And you're like, no, because you already saw what you're gonna draw. Like that is cheating. But like in this case, any good player would of course banish the broom so it's not exposed to the Maui shark. Like they're not going to make a dumb misplay like that. And so to call that out, I feel like, well, okay, my main issue is the fact that it's just wrong, right? So like the ruling I think was incorrect and he should have been able to banish the broom because that is literally what the rules say. And I think as a player to try to call that out, I feel like sometimes in these events at high level, there are people who will like call things out even if they know that they're wrong, just to like psychologically try to throw you off your game, right? And so I feel like that part is kind of douchey. Also, like that's not the rule. So I'm more angry, not so much about the rule sharking, because I feel like douchey people will be douchey people and try to like psychologically do psychological warfare in you. Like when they cut your deck, they take like one card and put it on the bottom or something like that. Like that is whatever. That's they do what they want to do. But the fact that like it wasn't ruled correctly, I think is more infuriating to me. And I think it speaks a lot to the fact that there is no official judge program right now. It's like all volunteers, they do take a test to get into the judge program. And I think there's like a document that they all refer to that's kind of like the holy grail of the rules or whatever. But I think that kind of similar things happened at the last chance qualifier and North American Championships, where like the person who was missing a card got disqualified. The person who on their own was like, my deck is not the same as the deck list I submitted. Can I like I'm self-reporting, like that got you in trouble and disqualified. And I just feel like people are just getting disqualified or like rulings are incorrect. And so because of that, I'm going to make a series where we go through the comprehensive rules. And I feel like comprehensive rules is a document. I did read it when it first came out and it was very, very boring. I did learn some things, but I feel like if I make it into a video, I'm going to try to make it as entertaining as possible so that we can all learn the friggin' rules so we don't get these, like, we don't get disqualified or a game loss or like things like this happening for things that we can prevent, right? Like things that we should know playing the game. And I mean, like, I feel like I've learned a lot just from going to competitions. So, for example, like you have to say draw for beast, then draw for turn. You can't do draw for turn and beast, things like that. And like when you play Pete, you have to say Pete no actions. You have to like declare it. And so let's go through the comprehensive rules together. That will be a series. I think part of that series, I will also go through. So they have a document about comprehensive rules, right? And then there's like document about tournament rules, official tournament rules. And then there is also one about like, I want to get the phrasing right, player correction guidelines. So that's like what happens when you break the rules, basically. And then there's like a short document about community code. So I think these are all they're all official documents, but they all sound very boring. And I think reading through them on my own, I would 100% glaze over. But I think maybe making it into a video format might be better, especially for people who like learn better by listening or talking through things, So that will be upcoming. And also upcoming will be I did open some boxes of first chapter English. And I think I did one where I was just talking. And then I did another one where I was like, oh, I'm going to make it like ASMR and I'm not going to talk. And it's just going to be like the crinkling of the cards. And of course, that's the one where I get like a crazy pull where I want to be like screaming, but I've been like doing an ASMR thing. So those will be going up probably this week and next week. So that is what to expect coming forth from the channel. Of course, next week we'll recap the last week of set champs. And as always, keep shuffling. Hopefully you don't end up with a whole handful of non-inkables like me. All right, bye.